is an open question. That is indeed an open question. Let's go to some U.S. news. Let's go to some U.S. news. Chuck Todd, the man himself. I am always enamored by these people who say stuff, and it's like a window behind the scenes. It's a window behind the scenes. So this is Chuck Todd having a conversation about what happened after the election and what they told Chuck Todd. Now, this has to do with the Hispanic vote. If you remember, in the election, the Hispanic vote went, I think it was almost like 48% to Donald Trump. It was a ridiculously high number of Hispanics that ended up voting for Trump. And of course, Democrats were upset. They were angry because Kamala Harris ran a flawless campaign. So the only reason that Hispanics would do that was because they were misogynistic and racist. And so, that's why Trump was able to get them. And because they were misogynistic and racist, according to Democrats, when they are deported, Democrats are going to cheer. And they're going to say, well, see, we told you so. You should have voted for Kamala Harris, even though she had nothing to offer. All right. So Chuck Todd had somebody to release information to him after the election. Now, when I talk about politics, I always say, well, look, people have more in common than they have not in common, especially if you deal with issues of their wallet. Meaning, if you deal with me as a worker, well, the overwhelming majority of the country works, and the overwhelming majority of the country are middle class or poor. And so if you're making an argument to that group, then by definition, you're going to have the majority of people because you're making an argument to the majority of Americans. Now, Democrats have this habit of slicing up groups, and they believe that each group is somehow very unique and very different. And so if you notice, Kamala Harris came out, she was like, people say, hey, there's no plan for blacks. And then she magically came up with a plan for blacks. And then she's like, here's my plan for Hispanics. And here's my plan for this group. Here's my plan for that group. As opposed to, you're all Americans. You're all workers. You all pay bills. And we're going to deal with your wallet. Because all of you, regardless of who you are, regardless of your racial distinction, have to deal with that. It's about economy. It's about the economics. It's the economy, stupid. That line again. This idea that your financial well-being is the thing that you're going to care about more than pretty much anything else. There may be other issues that you care about, but all things being equal, paying for the lights, paying for the kids, paying for the house, paying for the car, paying to eat, those things are going to take priority over everything else. And if you make an argument to that, you have a better chance of winning. Now, Democrats used to do that. That used to be their mainstay, right? It was a party of workers. They had unions, and those unions were back in the Democratic Party. And the unions would go out. They would be the muscle. They would put signs. They would knock on doors. That was their job. But if you notice, this time around, the main union, the Teamsters, didn't vote for Kamala Harris. Not at all. In fact, the majority of them ended up going for Trump. And not just the majority of them ended up going for Trump. You had the situation when they took that vote. And that vote was going to be the determining factor in whether or not they were going to support a particular political party. Trump came out higher in that vote total. Now, because of that, the Teamsters came back and said, okay, we're not going to vote this year. Meaning we're not going to make a ruling on who's going to get our support this time around, which you can imagine is rather damaging considering that this was something that the Democratic Party had basically had going back for as long as I can remember. And yet, this time around, not so much. So you would imagine that the Democratic Party would have soul searching about, well, how do we lose workers? And when you're looking at the polling, the after polling, the exit polling, it was very clear the Democrats got people who were dirt poor and the elites, with the working class voting primarily to Donald Trump. Now, that should create soul searching. I mean, you've lost something that you've had for decades, going back for as long as I can remember, back to the FDR era, and you lost them to a blue-collared billionaire. Instead of soul searching, what you ended up with was the Democratic Party effectively is calling everybody racist and sexist. All right. So this is Chuck Todd talking about what happened behind the scenes when he was given information about the election itself. And I want to make a very clear point. They had this information during the election. They had this information during the election. And in no way did this information change the way Kamala Harris ran her campaign. This is Chuck Todd.
This is always my favorite part about a post-election is the losing side suddenly shares memos that they never would have shared with you. And I got one from a
Molly brought some today.
Right. A strategist for a Biden super PAC circa 2022 sent me a polling memo that he had sent to the campaign. And there was a single, he wanted me to note a single observation that he had made at the end. And it was having to do with the Latino vote. And what was interesting, they were asking all sorts of questions and they were testing the democracy question. And one of the things that popped out to this source of mine, and he put it in his memo and he circled it to make sure I didn't miss it, was that Hispanics believed in a strong presidency. They were more open to a strong presidency. And in fact, were more, so this idea of the authoritarianism and this and that. And there was another aspect to it. The democracy message really didn't ring true with Latino voters, especially if they're first or second gen. Because first, you want to see a democracy crumbling? Let me introduce you to El Salvador. You want to see a democracy that doesn't work? Let me introduce you to Venezuela. And so it was one of those things that the Hispanic voters want a strong presidency, and they were more open to it, which was sort of this at the time. He was right, like Trump may make more inroads here than you think. And then the other aspect of Latino voters is that the Trump campaign targeted them on the same issues they were targeting working class white voters. Mm-hmm. And the Harris campaign targeted them as a community of color. And that's where I think the disconnect has sort of, and it's sort of like going forward, I think it's pretty clear class is the big divide in American politics, not identity. And I think I think both parties are sort of now get that in many ways, and I suspect a different sort of democratic messaging in the next 4 years because of that. This is always
I guess my thing is, for one, they had the data on it. Two, in no way did they change it. Meaning, it's frustrating to me. Because I often say that, look, stop telling me, like when you have Democrats doing their campaign stop petitioning blacks with this notion of getting out of jail. Like, it aggravates the hell out of me when I hear that. It feels racist as hell. They're like, for black people, what we're going to offer is lessening sentences for people going to jail. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Well, they're acting like blacks or Hispanics or gays or whatever demographic or group that you want to go with are somehow different, somehow special, somehow super unique, as opposed to, you realize that black person has to pay their bills, right? You realize that black person has to keep the lights on, right? You realize that Hispanic person has to pay the bills, right? You realize that white person has to pay the bills, right? Meaning, all of these people, all of these groups that they like to slice up, at the very least, have economic concerns that need to be ameliorated. It's that. I don't know why that's super weird. I don't even know why somebody had to tell them that. I don't know why they had to lose an election to even understand that. That seems to be the most basic thing in the world. If you shoot for the larger demographic, and you get that larger demographic, then you're going to win the election. The problem that Democrats have is that there's a contradiction in the way that they run their races. Instead of Democrats focusing on destroying the way campaigns are funded because it adversely affects them, they continue to run under that model and under that system. What I mean by that is if you have a political system where 90% of the races are won by the side with the most cash, meaning I don't even need to know your political ideology. If I have enough money, 90% of the time, I can win the race. Okay, then you have an issue because these races are effectively being bought. They're bribed. It's not a situation where two of the best people are running. They're running for the best interests of America. It's not that. It's this guy is getting millions of dollars. This guy is getting millions of dollars. And there's an arms race in regards to who can get the most money, because they know if they can get the most money, their chances of winning are that much better. So if you're a Democrat and you are supposed to believe in these lefty policies and these health programs like Social Security or Medicare for all or expansion of free college, if you are the Democrat that's supposed to believe in those things, is supposed to fight for those things because those things are in the best interest of the American public, especially the people on the lower end of the economic scale, keeping money in their pocket. How do you do that? How do you go and get $1 billion and say, with this $1 billion, I'm going to do all of these programs, which is going to increase your taxes. We're going to increase the amount that is given to Social Security. We're going to pay for schools and free college. We're going to pass Medicare for all. They're going to tell you, go F yourself. Jeff Bezos doesn't need healthcare. Elon Musk doesn't need education. These things that everybody else needs. These are things that people, regular people, ordinary Americans, white, black, gay, straight, trans, Hispanic, Chinese, Japanese, whatever. All of them need those things. And if you're the Democratic Party, you have a philosophical responsibility to deal with those issues. I mean, after all, it's supposed to be the party that manages the rough edges of the capitalistic system. So how do you do that in that model? You can't. You can't. It's fundamentally impossible. Nobody is going to give Kamala Harris money to pass Medicare for all. Nobody, meaning no, rich person, the people who they go to, these corporations, or for that matter, these CEOs, or for that matter, these business people, the people who have made it rich in this country, they're not going to give her money to do those things. They're not going to give a Democrat money to do those things. They don't believe in those things. And so if you're a Democrat, what do you have to do? You have to lie. You have to lie. You have to give things that will never get passed, and you have to tell people that you believe in these things. And even when you tell people, you have to water it down to such a degree where it becomes flaccid, impotent. It becomes negligible in real terms in regards to the other political party. And not just negligible, they become disbelieved, meaning it damages their ability to run a race under that model. And it makes it almost impossible for them to offer these kind of big things like that they used to do in the old days. These big ticket items saying, this is what I'm going to do. This is my vision. This is what I'm going to accomplish as president. I'm going to go in this direction, and we're going to go after anybody that doesn't support me for going in this particular direction. We're going to put people in office who believe in these things, and we're going to pass these things. God damn it, this is what we're going to do. They don't do that. They can't do that. They can't do that. When Joe Biden said he's going to increase the minimum wage $15 an hour and then dropped it as soon as he got into office. Okay, does that make you more or less inclined to believe whatever the Democrat is saying when they're running the next time around? When Obama's saying, I'm doing hope and change. Okay, I have no idea what that is. But does that make you more or less inclined to believe what the Democrat is saying the next time they run around? I hope you get my point. There's a philosophical responsibility that the Democrats in no way could fulfill running under this economic model in regards to the way we fund our political campaigns. And instead of doing something about the model, they continue to make, we're going to give $25,000 to people when they get a house. Okay, what if I don't want a house? Well, you should want a house. I'm Kamala Harris. And it's like, okay, dude, nobody believes you. Or you get Joe Biden, instead of saying we're going to get rid of all college debt, he's like, we're going to get rid of $5,000 of college debt. It's like, dude, my college debt is $50,000. But $5,000 is great, right? It helps, right? And of course, in a practical sense, well, yeah, $5,000 away is good, but it's negligible in the context of the entirety of the college issue and with the fact that people are still accumulating college debt. So it's like there's $1.7 trillion in college debt, something like that. And that number is only increasing because nothing is being done about the fact that they're able to rip kids off, rape them, blind at 17 years old saying, hey, you want a future? You want a future? You want to work at McDonald's or you want a future? Sign on the dotted line for a loan that's going to be with you for the next 30 years. You do that. Do that. Hey, is it going to guarantee me a future? Nope. There are no guarantees in life, son. Sign right here. Like, this stuff is stuff that is supposed to be dealt with at a political level. You're not supposed to be left to your own devices to fight these large corporations and banks where all of these people have their hand in your pocket from cradle to the grave, and you're just working, trying to make ends meet with this fog where it makes it come across as this is your responsibility alone. This is your responsibility for your healthcare bills. This is your responsibility for your college bills. It doesn't have to be that way. And truth of the matter is, a political solution is what many other countries have. Meaning many other countries deal with college debt. They deal with healthcare. Those are things that are not on people's backs from cradle to the grave. Those are things that the people have gotten together as a society saying, let's deal with this. We want more people to go to school. So let's deal with this. Let's get rid of that cost. We don't want people to be dying on the street with cancer. So let's deal with this. We don't want people to feel like they have to shoot CEOs in the back in New York City. So let's deal with the healthcare issue. Let's not put people in that position. What is the saying? When protests become impossible or change becomes impossible, revolution becomes inevitable. Is shooting a man in the back a form of revolution? Yeah, in some sense, yeah, it is. It is. My point is that the party that is supposed to deal with those things is not. And that is the reason why they lost. I'll go further with this. Kamala Harris had a conversation with Sean O'Brien. This was the Teamsters Union. Now, when he was talking to Tucker Carlson, I want you to hear this. Because he made the point of saying, look, RFK, questions were given to the candidates. RFK answered all of their questions. Apparently answered all of them. Kamala Harris answered 2 and called it a day, which is part of the reason why they didn't get why they didn't get his support. Let's play this clip.
So in your meeting with him, it was obvious that
it was. So we give 16 questions 2 weeks in advance, the same 16 questions to each candidate. So, RFK answered all 16 questions. Probably most of them didn't answer them how we would like them to answer them, but they answered them. Joe Biden came in and he answered 5 of them. Donald Trump answered all 16. And then when Biden drops out of the race, but prior to Biden dropping out of the race, he's in the race around June or May. One of my vice presidents, a woman named Joan Corey out of my local, she sits on our general executive board, was at an event with Vice President Harris. And, they're going through the line to get the picture. And Joan introduces herself to Vice President Harris, says, I'm Joan Corey. I'm on the general executive board for the Teamsters. She goes, Teamsters? You better get on board. You better get on board. Better get on board soon. Says it to my vice president.
To her face?
To her face. So she comes back. We have the meeting the next day.
Damn.
And she tells me this.
I thought I was arrogant. That's really arrogant.
So
think about that. Like think of the level of just sublime arrogance, just radical arrogance, where you were supposed to be there to get their vote. And look, this is a problem with Democrats. This type of Democrats. These people fundamentally believe that your vote is owed to them, meaning they fully believe that, I don't have to get your vote, which is what candidates typically do. They have to go out and they have to get their votes. Instead, you better vote for me. You better get on board. You better get on board. This train is going with or without you. You better vote for me. Who the hell are you? Now, the reason they do this is because from their point of view, Trump is so radioactive that by virtue of his radioactivity, you must vote for me. I'm your savior. I'm your way out of this box. They do this nonsense election after election after election, where they say Republicans are clearly, you can't vote for them. And so we're here to save you. So we're giving you the privilege and the opportunity to vote for us. And of course, the American public tell them to F off, which is what the team says, F off. Go F yourself. This is not the way elections are supposed to work. I don't owe you my vote. None of these people owe you their votes. You work for their votes. You've inverted the political system. And all of these people who are out there screaming that, oh, these people are racist and sexist and bigoted and everything else. What you are missing is that your candidate is supposed to actually get their votes. They're supposed to give a plan, a vision, an idea, something that people will give a shit about and go out and vote for. It's raining, but damn it, I'm going to vote for this candidate because I want so-and-so. Or damn it, it's cold outside, but I want this candidate because they're doing so-and-so. I believe that this person is going to do X or Y, so I will crawl over hot blast in the middle of an alien invasion with drones shooting laser beams, and I'm dodging and ducking, and I'm running and pulling the lever for my candidate. Is anybody going to do that for Kamala Harris? Well, obviously, the answer was no. The answer was no. This was the level of arrogance that she was showing that people could see with their own eyes. And yeah, that does not necessarily translate all that well into people voting for you. When they tell you that she ran a flawless campaign, tell them to go F themselves. They fundamentally miss what campaigns are supposed to be. They're acting as if they're some kind of savior to the American population, as opposed to running a campaign where they are actually dealing with the issues of the American public in real terms, not just in language, not just in rhetoric, not just in messaging in the way that they like to say, but no, in real world terms. Am I going to have more money in my wallet? Yay or nay? Am I going to be able to get a job? Yay or nay? Is that job going to pay me well? Yay or nay? Are my bills going to be higher or lesser? Which one? It's that part. Am I going to have to pay for health care? Yay or nay? Is that bill going to be more expensive? Yay or nay? Am I going to be able to get health insurance? Yay or nay? Is my Social Security going to be increased in a way that benefits me? Is dental going to be included upon Medicare? Like, these are real world things that people have to deal with on a daily basis that under no circumstances get dealt with by either political party. And truth of the matter is, I have no expectation that the Republican Party is going to do it because they don't believe in those things. But they are honest about the fact that they don't believe in those things. Democrats, less so. Less so. And then they like say, well, Republicans didn't let us do blah, 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 leaning on the crutch of the Republicans in that sense. If you were better, you would get elected. It's that. And until you deal with that, you're not dealing with anything. It's enraging. Because from my point of view, serenity now. Serenity now. I'm getting pissed off. Anna Kasparian apparently didn't vote for Kamala Harris. Did you know that? I didn't know that. Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks apparently did not vote for Kamala Harris. And she effectively said she was an empty suit. Why am I going to continuously vote for an empty suit? Now, this is growth. Because if you remember, up to that point, they were blue no matter who. And they would push blue no matter who. That was their mantra. That's what they would do. And somewhere along the way, she broke. Now, I remember when Anna first said this, I think this was back during the Clinton campaign. And she was like, I'm not voting for Hillary Clinton. I'm not voting for Hillary Clinton. And then as the election got closer, she was like, Donald Trump scared the shit out of me. I'm now voting for Hillary Clinton. And had a meltdown that night when it happened. So apparently, they are getting pissed off at the candidates that are being put up. Now, the reason I bring this up is because the truth of the matter is when you get shows like Sam Cedar, David Pakman, these kind of Democrat adjacent shows that are always going to be blue no matter who. I put Young Turks in that too. They weaken their candidates. If you have, as a candidate, know that you have my vote regardless, and you have all of the support regardless, meaning I could be a dead body that has a D on it, and you'd get my vote, then what does that do to you? It inflates your head. It gasses you up. It makes you think that your chances of winning, regardless of what you do, are acceptable because the loudest voices are the ones that are Democratic adjacent, that are pushing for you, that are backing you, and you know a large percentage of the party is going to vote for you. What if that wasn't true, though? What if a large percentage wasn't going to vote for you? What if a large percentage said, this is unacceptable? And not just unacceptable, There's a basic minimum that we will accept to win. I don't care who wins the primary. There's a basic minimum of what we would accept to win, otherwise you lose. And this is the basic minimum. Then what happens? Meaning, do you really get the milquetoast candidate when the milquetoast candidate knows going in that he's going to lose? And I'm saying that should be a standard for any election. Back to genocide, you're going to lose. If you're not supporting government healthcare on some level, you're going to lose. I'm saying that that is the way that it should be looked at and regarded. And until you get to that point, you're going to get continued milquetoast, weak, flaccid Democrats that aren't worth anything and that are so negligible to the other party that 7 million, 8 million people just stay home. That's what you're going to get. It's infuriating, it's aggravating, and nevertheless, it is our political system. It is the way it runs. And until they get that, they're not going to get anything. Now, Chuck Todd seems to believe that the political parties are going to somehow start messaging that. Now, again, I don't care about the messaging. I care about what you're going to actually do. And I have no great feeling for Donald Trump. I have no great belief he's going to do anything significant or great. I suspect he's going to cut taxes. He's going to create all sorts of economic chaos in the United States and around the world. I didn't vote for him. Many people did. But keep in mind, they did because in one sense, they didn't feel like they had a good choice. And they thought Harris was effectively just an empty soup. From my point of view, she was just an empty soup. Yeah, from my point of view, she was just an empty soup. So we'll see if Chuck Todd is right. We'll see if Chuck Todd is right. It's just funny to me that it's like they're aware of this stuff, but nobody says it. So Chuck Todd is walking around with this information, but never says it. It doesn't come out. It's not something that the American public gets that, where they can regard it in a certain way, or for that matter, that other Democrats get where they can regard it in a certain way. They ran with Liz Cheney, and they took Liz Cheney from pillar to post all across the country, trying to get conservatives or Republicans, because what she didn't want to deal with were lefties. She didn't want her base. Also, one other thing. They combine this idea of progressivism with things like transgender kids, transgender men in women's sports. Like, they mix the stuff. They add it with identities, with this woke stuff, with this, hey, you got to use your language right, otherwise you're being racist or bigoted or transphobic. They combine all of that stuff as opposed to we have a workers' platform. We care about workers. We're not doing with all this language nonsense. We're not going to be super reactive on this stuff. Human beings are human beings. We're together in our objectives. It's that part. What you hear people complain about when they say, oh, these progressives are ruining the party. They're not talking about the economic stuff. Meaning you're Chuck Todd himself. Well, people care about economic issues. Is the economy stupid? Okay, well, when I'm talking about the left, I'm not talking about that woke stuff. I'm talking about economic populism, things that affects people's wallets. This notion of healthcare, this notion of education, this expansion of Social Security, adding dentals to Medicare, having Medicare negotiate drug prices. I am talking about things that make people's wallets fatter, that makes their lives easier, and that affects the overwhelming majority of the American public to the tune of 90% or more. That's my point of view on it. When they say it, they are separating it into, Martin Luther King. Oh, he wasn't a socialist. He was just for civil rights. No, he was actually a socialist because he full well believed that what does it matter if you're free if you are also poor? Meaning, yeah, you're free, but you can't get healthcare. You're free, but you're locked out of education. You're free, but you can't find a place to live because, everywhere's too expensive. Like, meaning freedom without this kind of economic portion. While it's not meaningless, it's not the same thing. Can you really be free if you are in this kind of economic box where you can't necessarily do anything? It's that part. It's that part. I want to move